Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here with a brand new Magicka Sorcerer build for the Elder Scrolls Online, updated now for the Flames of Ambition DLC, and this is going to be our Grind God Magicka Sorcerer with massive AoE damage, huge sustain, and if you just want to blow things up quickly, then this is the build for you. Of course, we'll go over everything you need to know to make it work, including the gear set options, skills, champion points for the new CP 2.0 system, and much, much more. So let's get started. All right, everybody, we are back on the Magicka Sorcerer, this time with an updated solo build for the Flames of Ambition DLC. And this is going to be our Grind God Magicka Sorcerer. Just tons of burst damage and a really fun build to play. So let's go ahead and check it out. Talking about our buffed stats. First of all, let's jump right into it. So about 35k max magicka, 22,000 max health, 12,000 max stamina. Look at those recoveries though, very nice. 1,700 mag, about 2,000 health recovery, 600 stamina recovery. Weapon damage this patch is pretty impressive. You got over 5,000 weapon damage on this setup. We do have more crit on the Sorc, by the way, about 75% spell critical. Spell pen is looking good for overland content, and resistances are fine. This is a 1-bar setup, by the way. I don't think I mentioned that. So I'm not really going to worry about the resistances very much on this build. The idea is you're just going to blow stuff up so fast, it shouldn't even touch you to begin with, so don't worry about your resistances. 64 points into max magicka, of course, since we are the Magicka Sorcerer. For the food, Witch Mother's Potent Brew is pretty good this patch. I do like this. Very easy to get for one thing. And it does give you good overall stats. You got the health, max magicka, and magicka recovery. That's pretty much all we need. Honestly, you could make do with blue food like max health, max magicka if you want to push out even more stats. You saw that my recovery was very high already. Thief Mundus is going to be a nice option for this build specifically. That gives us about that 75% crit rating, which is very strong for grinding experience. Minor Berserk, Major Prophecy. We'll talk about how we get all those in a minute. For the consumables, I'm running Spell Power Potions. You absolutely do not need these, though. You can get away with just basic Magicka Potions on this 1-bar build. That's the way I've set it up because you have your Major Sorcery and your Major Prophecy from Inner Light. So we have both of our major buffs on this build. We barely have to do anything. So basic Magicka Potions, save yourself the money. Why not? And then let's talk about race. There's many good options for race this patch. Now, I am running a High Elf, but Dark Elf, Khajiit are also very strong options, even Bretons, still for the extra sustain. I do like High Elf for this passive. Specifically, Spell Recharge gives me some nice sustain based on whichever of my resource pools is lowest. So I do like that. Searbane's Boon still gives you the max magicka, and then Elemental Talent still gives you the spell damage. So overall, High Elf is in a good place. That has not changed. But like I said, other races are now even better than they have been in the past. And this is just a basic, grind build. So your race honestly isn't a big deal on this setup. So that's the basics. Let's talk about the gear sets. So we're starting off with a very nice damage set. That's going to be New Moon Acolyte. I just wanted something crafted, something that was easy to pick up. So this has very good stats, you guys, and they are buffed even higher this patch thanks to all of our own self buffs. So crit chance, spell damage, offensive penetration, more spell damage. You do get the 5% increased cost, but our recovery, as you saw, is so high this patch that this is honestly not even noticeable at all. I wouldn't worry about it. So run the New Moon Acolyte staff. You do want a lightning staff, because that's going to buff your AoE damage by 8%, and this build is all about AoE damage. So make sure you get the lightning staff for your front bar, and then just 3 pieces of jewelry. So I've got the New Moon neck and 2 rings, all 3 of these with spell damage, and I did go with the infused trait. That's why I could get my spell damage over 5,000. There's just so much spell damage on builds this patch, you guys. You might as well maximize it if you can. So infused will be a nice buff there if you can get it. Now, our next set, very classic, very easy overland set to get, Mother's Sorrow. If you're not familiar with this, it gives you max magicka and some very nice spell critical. It did get nerfed very slightly this patch, but it's still, for endgame, one of the best sets you can have. You're going to use it for the entire game, so might as well pick this up as well. So I am running 5 pieces of Mother's Sorrow on the body for this setup. everything divines if you can, and then max Magicka for all of your enchants. Finally, the monsters set. I do like Slimecraw on this particular build. That's because Minor Berserk gives me even more damage on top of what I'm already pushing out. 5% doesn't sound like much, but when you're pushing out big numbers, the 5% does make a difference. And the goal of these builds is to kill stuff as fast as possible, right? So pushing out as much damage as possible. Slimecraw is a very nice option for that. So that's the monster set I prefer right now for the head and the shoulders. With this, stuff is going to die so fast. Yeah, you really don't need anything else. Nothing with a delayed effect is even going to be useful on this setup. For another option, I would just run flat stat pieces. You know, like Molokina for more spell damage. Slimecraw obviously gives you the crit chance. Sets like that, if you don't have a full monster set, you know, max Magicka, those are totally fine to run 2 mismatched monster set pieces. That will do pretty well on this build also. So that is the setup, you guys. We got Mother Sorrow Body, New Moon Acolyte, weapons, and jewelry with the Slimecraw monster set. Like I said, this is a 1-bar build, so I'm not really going to talk about a back bar setup. I will have a 2-bar setup, though, listed on the website. Check that out if you want to see a 2-bar version of this build. But let's go ahead and talk about the skills next. How do we make this work? So, on the 1-bar setup, again, pushing out as much AoE damage as possible. We've got Daedric Tomb from the Dark Magic skill line. This is actually the last ability here. And we want Daedric Tomb as the morph because this is the ranged morph, okay? The other morph puts these mines around you. You want to fire these off at range. So Daedric Tomb is the morph that you want. 3 mines at range. They arm instantly. It's going to make for a very nice combo on this setup. And these do a lot of damage. I'm talking about over 20, 25k. If you get a crit on these, and our spell crit is very high, as we saw. Next up, more AoE damage. Let's talk about Volcanic Rune. That would be from the Mages Guild skill line. That's your second to last ability here. Volcanic Rune, you want this morph because this is our stun, an AoE stun, as well as a very nice damage source. You can see only a little bit less damage than mines there. So this will place a rune on the ground at range. It does take about 3 seconds to arm, so you're going to want to cast this first, followed up by your Daedric Mines, the Daedric Tomb morph. And then our last AoE ability is going to come from the Destruction Staff skill line. It's going to be Elemental Ring. Okay, so that's the last skill in the Destruction Staff skill line. This does AoE damage at range. With a Lightning Staff, the Shock Ring morph does increase damage based on the number of enemies hit. So that is good. So just a little bit of extra AoE damage. We do get some nice passives from this as well, which we'll talk about in a minute. If you happen to get the Killing Blow with this AoE ability, it's pretty nice. Next up, Inner Light. This is just passive stats, you guys. Inner Light's still very powerful, this patch. That is from the Mages Guild skill line. First regular ability there. Gives you about 7% max Magicka with the Mage Guild passives, plus your Major Prophecy, so that's about 12% spell critical on this build. So that's very nice. That's the reason why we can run cheap trash potions or no potion at all and have that huge crit chance on this build. And then our final regular ability is going to be Critical Surge. That is back in the Sorcerer skill line. Storm Calling, second to last ability here. And this is just our healing, our passive healing and spell damage. Very nice buff to have on the 1-bar setup, so that's why it's there. In terms of the ultimate, lots of options here are good. Since I'm going with kind of an AoE focus, like a lockdown style of play, Suppression Field is really good for those large groups. Like if you're taking on 10, 15 enemies at a time, just throw down the Suppression Field. Once mobs run into that, they will be stunned for a long time. That 12-second duration can kill off a lot of enemies in that time. So this is very nice for the larger groups. I'm not going to use it all the time. For smaller groups, you won't need any ultimate at all. So that is the 1-bar setup. Let's go ahead and move outside, see how this works. So buffing up with Crit Surge first, just find a group of enemies. You're going to start with your Volcanic Rune. Remember, that takes just a couple seconds to trigger. But throw down that rune, followed up with your Mines and Shock Ring. That's sort of the 3-skill combo. Let's see, you got a single enemy over here. That's fine. Rune, Mines, Shock Ring. Sometimes you won't even need the shock. This combo is so powerful. But again, Rune, Mines, followed up with Shock Ring. The nice thing you can see here about mines is if your combo doesn't kill off the enemies, it should root them in place. So you can just hit them with a couple extra of those shock AoEs, and that should take care of the rest. There you go. We have so much crit damage that everything pretty much just blows up in midair. It's pretty fun, I have to admit. I'll do a couple more groups here, see if we can find anything else. So rune, mines, and shock. There you go. All right, so that was the basic rotation. Again, very simple on the 1-bar setup. Now, in terms of what passives you want, let's check these out very quickly. In Dark Magic, Unholy Knowledge, make sure you put 2 points here for the extra cost reduction. That's going to be very good this patch. Dark Magic, we are getting some nice passive healing from the Daedric Tomb. I would recommend 2 points here. Persistence, you shouldn't really need to block on the setup, but you could put 2 points there. And then Exploitation does give you that extra spell crit. This is actually very strong. So when you cast a Dark Magic ability, you get even more crit chance, so that works off Daedric Tomb, as we saw here. So yes, all of these, make sure you pick those up. Daedric Summoning, we're not using too much on this build. We just honestly didn't have enough slots. So if you want to maybe run this with 2 skill bars, you could get more benefit here, but definitely run Power Stone. This does reduce the cost of your ultimates by 15%. That would be the main one to pick up there. And then Storm Calling, these are good, you guys. Capacitor, increase your Magicka recovery by 10%. Energized, 5% more shock damage. Amplitude, 10% bonus damage. Expert Mage, we get lots of nice spell damage. 6% spell damage on top of all the spell damage that we have already. Yes, you do want that one for sure. Destruction Staff, yep, you want all of these. And I did touch on it briefly. Why do you want a Lightning Staff versus like a Flame Staff or a Frost Staff for this type of build? I'm just talking about like AoE damage. Well, it's right here in this passive called Ancient Knowledge. You can see equipping a Lightning Staff increases your damage done with area of effect abilities by 8%. So that's actually a huge buff. That's why you want the Lightning Staff. Light Armor, yes, you will want all of these. Some of these did get buffs, like Concentration. Look how much Spell Pen we have running 7 pieces of light. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but you do want 7 pieces of light, mostly for this passive and for the Prodigy passive. These now scale all the way up to 7 pieces, so you get the most stats possible for a light armor build. Mage's Guild, yes, we do get some extra max Magicka from the Magicka controller passive. Actually, this is good. Look at that, 4% bonus max Magicka and Magicka recovery. That's actually pretty good. Make sure you pick up Magicka controller. And then, of course, racial skills, and then alchemy medicinal use for that potion duration. Let's jump into champion points next. So remember, the purpose of this type of build is to actually get as much experience as possible to grind and increase your overall CP. So I don't expect you to have a lot of champion points to make this build work. On my website for the written version of this build, you can go ahead and click the link down below for that. I will have different versions of CP for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 champion points. And then I'll kind of show you the progression here through each tree as well, where you want to start. So in the green tree, again, green tree is totally customizable to you. This doesn't affect combat very much at all. I do always recommend that you start with Steed's Blessing for the extra 20% movement speed. This is really nice, just moving around between spawns when you're grinding experience. And then Gilded Fingers, this gives you 10% increased gold. I always start with those two. From there, like I said, you can kind of customize it. I will go up this way. Fortune's Favor, Wanderer, Steadfast Enchantment. And then you can get some really good slottable stars once you are at this point. So up here, Treasure Hunter, 50 points in the Treasure Hunter. This increases the quality of loot in treasure chests. Your other option is to come down this way, and then Rationer. This gives you 30-minute bonus duration on food and drinks. Then another nice one is over here, Liquid Efficiency. This actually has a chance of making your potion be free, so not consuming a potion. So that's what I would recommend in the green tree. Again, start with the basic ones, Steed's Blessing, Gilded Fingers. If you have more CP than that, then pick up some of these that interest you. There are even more over here. If you guys need more help with CP, make sure you go to my website. I have plenty of champion point guides there. Let's talk about the blue tree next. Blue is basically the most complex tree that we have because it includes damage, it includes healing, and things like mitigation, survivability. Now again, if you don't have all these, that's fine. Everybody starts in the middle, you guys. Precision, increase your crit chance. I do recommend maxing this out first. So 40 points into precision, then heading over here to extended might. The main thing you need in extended might is piercing, okay? If you put 10 points into piercing, now you're at 50, right? So we did 40 precision, 10 into piercing. We're at 50 total. Now you can open up this. And these are all your damage focus stars that are the strongest ones in this tree as far as damage goes. Now, the only one I've picked for this build makes sense. It's Biting Aura because this is area of effect damage, right? So I'm getting an extra 10% right away on all of those abilities, whether it's Rune, the Shock Ring, whether it's the Daedric Tomb, all of those are getting buffed by an additional 10% due to Biting Aura. So this is going to be the first one that you guys want to pick up. So 40, 10, and then 50 into Biting Aura. That's going to give you a lot of power on your build. From there, if you do have more champion points, then you just add more power. Another nice one here is actually Fighting Finesse. This gives you 10% critical damage. So we have that very high crit chance. Most of the time we're going to get a crit, and then this is going to be buffed even further due to the Fighting Finesse CP star. So that's our second damage focus star. So again, we have Biting Aura, then Fighting Finesse. Remember, you can have 4 per tree. So I have Biting Aura, Fighting Finesse, and then I have room for 2 more. So I'm just going to pick up these outer ones here. Untamed Aggression gives me even more spell damage, 150 bonus spell damage. And then Arcane Supremacy, this gives me 1300 max Magicka. So you can see I'm getting a lot of nice offensive stats here. And I'm not really concerned about defense, which is more down in this area, because you saw stuff is just blowing up and it's not even touching me. So I'm not concerned about defense on this build. You can get even more passive stats if you have more CP. Things like Eldritch Insight gives you even more max Magicka. And then you have some other ones in here, specifically War Mage. This gives you an additional 100 spell damage. So again, I know it's a lot. Remember to start with Precision, Piercing, Biting Aura, and then fill out your 4 CP stars from there. Remember to check out the written guide if you have any questions about the champion points. There are different versions there. Finally, in the red tree, what's good for this build is Sustain. So to get that Sustain, the best one is actually over here. It's called Siphoning Spells. This gives you 300 Magicka per kill on an enemy, up to 5 stages. So that's 1,500 Magicka back, you guys. This is absolutely amazing for sustaining this build. So how do you get Siphoning Spells? Well, you actually need to start down here in Sprinter. So I'm going to fill out 1 stage of Sprinter. That's 10 points. 1 stage of Hasty. That's about 8 points. 1 stage or 2 of Hero's Vigor. This just gives you extra health. So that's 10 or 20 points there. And then that's going to unlock the rest of this part of the red tree, which gives you all these nice passive bonuses. Now you can get Siphoning Spells. So again, going from here up to Hasty, Hero's Vigor, Siphoning Spells, that's what I would recommend. So you get that nice sustain. And then everything on top of that is just bonus, extra helpful things. So for example, if you want even more sustain, pick up Rejuvenation. This gives you 150 Magicka stamina and health recovery. Balanced Vitality, this is even more max health. Strategic Reserve is just another fun one that I like on these grind-focused builds. This gives you up to 1,500 health recovery for your build. That means even without healing, you have really good health sustain. That's just one option I like. You can also put more armor. So that's the Ironclad passive. You can choose what you want there. So that's the basic CP setup. Again, check out the written guide if you want different version of that for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP. All right, finally, the outfit style. Let's talk about this in case you're curious. Under armor styles, this is actually a fairly new one, I believe, from Markarth. This is called Wayward Guardian. So I'm running this, all the light armor pieces. So the robe, gloves, shoulders, hands, waist. And then I do have a different style for the staff. That is the Bloodforge staff from the Bloodroot Forge dungeon. All right, everybody, and with that, that's going to wrap up our Grind God Magicka Sorcerer solo build for the Elder Scrolls Online. If you enjoyed the video today or you found it at all informative, make sure to crush that like button and subscribe for many more Elder Scrolls Online videos just like this one. If you like this build and you want to see more, make sure to check out the written guide as well. I will have the 2-bar skill set up there, as well as multiple champion point setups. Link will be down in the description. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you're doing well. Stay safe out there, and I will see you around in the next video.